Alright, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to glue everything together into the main application. Without further ado, let's jump right in. First of all, let's start with the build gradle.kts and to check if we have some dependencies to add. Let's add the products feature, authentication feature, wishlist feature, and settings feature. That's all. Let's sync the projects. Next, under app, I would like to modify the manifest file. We're going to use here the splash screen. But beforehand, I would like to add here the internet permission. And for the icon, launcher, and the rounded version. For the app theme, we're going to use the splash screen. We already defined this splash screen theme in the core UI module. Instead of assigning PocketGuard theme, we're going to assign this particular theme, which is app starting for the splash screen. And that's all we got for the file Android.manifest. I'm going to delete the drawables here because we don't need them. The same thing for the map, and the same goes for the colors. Delete. I don't know why it does not have the background, white background. Let's come back to the core UI, perhaps. All right, instead of this background, I'm gonna change it to white background. So I'm going to regenerate this particular IC launcher icon image, and instead of the background layer should be the same image, I'm gonna add here a color. I'm gonna do here white color. That's it. I'm gonna hit next. Gonna leave the same thing as done here. I'm gonna do finish. Let's come back to the manifest, and we have the correct one. I'm gonna see how it's gonna look like under the device. So where to go from here? This is the question. For me personally, I would like to structure the projects like this. First of all, I don't need here the UI theme. I'm gonna delete it. Under the main activity, I'm going to delete everything from here. Likewise, now we have a clean project. We have to get rid of the application for health application. Create here a new package, call it application. Inside, I'm gonna create a new class. I'm gonna call it PocketGuard application. It's a health Android application that has to inherit from the application class. And we have to come back to the manifest and assign it here. And we have the application PocketGuard application. And I would like to create here another package that's gonna be for the main application. I would like to move this main activity into another package. I'm gonna call it main. Come back to the Android manifest, the main activity as in the target. Now inside the main activity, we're going to specify here basically just an overview, the home screen, the layout for our application, as well as the view model responsible to link everything together. So let's go step by step. Under the main package, I'm going to create here a main view model. As we have done previously, we need to define the events that we need here in this particular view model. As usual, we have to infer the events that should be implemented in our main view model, which is very important. One event which is very obvious to load the data. Basically, we're going to load the user data from the get-go to check if the user is authenticated or not. Therefore, create here a new file or sealed class, call it main activity events. On load data, if the user is authenticated or the authentication has a success state, what we have to do, we have forgot here to add the core module. Let's synchronize and another callback function that should be triggered when the user is not authenticated or there is an error. We need to check when the loading data process has just started. I'm gonna add here on start loading, optional callback function, and another one when the loading is done or finished. It is optional as well. And since we haven't used the settings feature so far, we're going to define another event. Let's call it, for example, onset dark theme. It's gonna allow the user to switch back and forth between dark theme and light theme and save it in the application settings. If you do remember, in the previous application, introduced the home page, and in the home screen, we have the capability or the possibility to toggle the products on and off from the wishlist. Therefore, we're going to define here an event. Let's call it on toggle wishlist. And since we are going to use in this particular section the snack bar message, we're going to set the data to the snack bar controller. Therefore, we have to use here or to define a particular event for this purpose. Let's call it onset snack bar data, because we're going to handle the process that we need to save somewhere the latest visited screen. Therefore, I'm going to call it, for example, on set current destination. If we ever need other events, we're going to define them accordingly. The next step is to define the state for this main view model. Let's add here a data class. Let's call it main activity state. We can easily here infer the state from the home screen, for example, under the view tree application. We need a loading indicator as a boolean, and we need another value for the dark theme. And since we are using the splash screen, we need to have a state in order to control the visibility of the splash screen. And we need a state to control the snack bar data and current destination. Let's come back to the main activity event. We need to use snack bar data from our core UI. Let's add here the core UI. Let's sync the project, make sure to import it from core UI. And we are ready to implement the main view model. We need the authentication use cases, the settings use cases, and the wishlist use cases. As usual, we need the dispatchers. We're not going to hard code the dispatchers. Last but not least, the saved state handle in order to handle navigation and its related data. Let's create, first of all, the private mutable state. It has to be of type mutable state flow, main activity state, and the state that has to be consumed of type main activity state. In this particular section, we have an important thing here to do, which is basically to handle the latest visited screen. To access the latest screen, we have to access it from the saved state handle in order to handle the process that latest visited screen. And we have assigned the key as current destination key. And because it's a nullable value, by default, we're going to return the home screen. As usual, we're going to handle the job correctly by initializing and creating a current job as a private job. And let's define the list of the events that should be implemented. We have forgot here to add main activity and events. Let's come back to the main view model. From the same principle that we have done previously in the wishlist feature, first of all, let's cancel the current job and assign a new one from calling view model scope and launch under the context of input output, dispatchers input output, run catching. Let's store the result under result, toggle wishlist, and we have to provide here the user ID, the product ID from the parameter, and that's pretty much it. With the same manner, we're going to do result and on success. In this section, we only care about the success state. If you want, you can add the error state, but for me, it's not necessary. Let's add here a parameter, or let's rename this parameter to inserted wishlist item. If the inserted wishlist item equal -1, in other words, we are deleting an item called onRemoved with the same manner on added. Now we need to handle the dark theme or switching on and off dark theme and light theme. We're going to call the settings use cases and use the application or save application settings in the arguments settings, and the app settings model is dark theme. To set the current destination, we have to handle here two parts of the code. The first one is to save the destination under the saved state handle in order to be accessed within the initialization of main activity state, and the other section which is to save the data locally under main activity state, and we have to update the state. So whenever we are going to navigate to a new destination or a screen, we're going to call this event. The next one is to set snack bar data. Basically, we're just going to update the state, snack bar data equal data. I think we have one function to go, which is load the data. This is a little bit tricky because if you don't handle this correctly, your end-to-end test will always wait for the screen to be idle and it's not going to work. Therefore, I have used these two callback functions. We're going to talk about this later on. First of all, when we load the data, we're going to set the visibility of the splash screen to true. Afterward, we're going to flag or to trigger the loading of the data. I'm going to call on start loading. Now let's use the use case from authentication use cases. Get cached user to check if the user is still authenticated or not. As soon as the application starts, we're going to switch to the dispatcher's input output and launch in view model scope. Let's rename this one to resource. As usual, in case of success, first of all, we're going to trigger the onSuccess or to call onSuccess callback function and pass in the resource.data. Then we have to update a splash screen visible to false. Basically, we're going to hide the splash screen. In case of error, basically for most cases, it's going to be a wrong token. In case of wrong token, we're going to clear the cached user and hide the splash screen. And for the other cases, we don't care. We're going to do here unit. That's pretty much it for the main view model. At this particular stage, you have two options. The first option is to write integration tests for main view model, or to leave it until we are done with the whole main package or the whole main parts of the application and run the integration tests. I prefer to do the latter. So let's go ahead and use this main view model under our main activity. First things first, we need to annotate this main activity with Android entry point for dependency injection. Now, in order to use the main view model, we're going to create here a private main view model by view models of type main view model. I would like here to hide the action bar. Inside the onCreate, we're going to trigger the event on load data. For now, we're not going to implement on start loading and on done loading. Basically, on success, we're going to assign the authenticated user. And to assign the authenticated user, we need the view model of type auth view model. We have now the auth view model. We will trigger the event auth view model set authenticated user. On error, with the same thing, we're going to set the authenticated user to null. This way, we're going to keep the data between the auth view model and the main view model in sync. And now we are ready to show the splash screen. So install splash screen, apply. Now the condition to keep the splash screen visible is main view model state and is splash screen visible. Let's go ahead and wrap everything within our theme. We're going to assign here the is dark theme under the main view model. Let's collect and observe the state of this particular state. As we have done previously under the Vuetify application, we have implemented a layout in order to organize and structure the application. Basically, we have a header and a main section and a footer. Under main, a new composable, let's call it layout. Let's wrap everything within a scaffold. Why, you may ask? Because we're going to show to the user the snack bar message. Therefore, we have to use a scaffold. I want to add here a test tag for this particular section in order to be accessible under our end-to-end test. And we have to provide here the snack bar host. The snack bar host, you can either implement it here internally or make it as custom composable. I would like to keep it as a custom composable. Under Pocket Goods, create a new package. Let's call it component. Create a new composable, call it snack bar host. Basically, we're going to use the snack bar composable that you have defined under the core UI. So make sure to import this one. Now we have to provide the snack bar host state. Let's do, for example, the shape here, small rounded corners and some padding 2dp vertical and horizontal 2dp. For the severity of the snack bar, we're going to hoist this state because we're going to deal with this under the layout. And we can easily access the severity from the main activity state. We need here two parameters, the message to be shown, as well as the severity. Basically, I would like to maintain the same visual appearance with the Vuetify application. This composable will consist of an icon and a text. The drawable ID for this particular icon, it's from the main activity state from the snack bar data. We have implemented, if you do remember, under core UI, snack bar icon color and passing the severity as an argument. The next composable, which is a text, we have to assign the message. We have defined the snack bar icon color composable by passing the severity. Basically, it's going to have the same foreground color as the icon. That's all for the snack bar host. Let's use it here under the layout. And we have to provide the snack bar host state as well as the main state. Therefore, we're going to hoist those two states here under layout. I want to set the content window inset to 0, 0, 0, 0. And let's rename this parameter to inner padding. For the whole thing, we're going to wrap everything within a column because the whole section of our app is going to be represented in a vertical sequence, placing the header as well as the main section and the footer I want this column to occupy the max size, and we have to pass the inner padding as an argument into padding. For the background of this column, I'm gonna do here background, and it has to be a scrollable container. Let's create here a variable or a value. Let's call it scroll state. And I would like to add here a test tag in order to identify this particular scrollable. This test tag is very important when we are going to deal with end-to-end tests. For the vertical arrangement, I would like to space between the header and the main section and the footer to do. And the main section, basically, it's the navigation. Let's start with the header and the main section. I'm gonna wrap here everything within a column under the components and create a new composable. Let's call it header section. We're going to use the header that we have defined under our core UI. Add here a modifier parameter and pass the modifier. Let's create under header section the nav controller in order to hoist this particular one. On logo click, we have to provide here the screen, home screen. On before navigate, this is not mandatory by the way, but it's optional. Let's set the current destination to home screen. All right, to get these errors out of the way, I'm gonna do here search input. So we need to pass here just the screen instead of the route. And we have to trigger the event on set current destination. To do so, we're going to hoist this method. Let's import main events, and we're going to trigger on set current destination. Let's add the search input. We need to access here the value of is processing, if you do remember, basically the loading indicator that's going to be shown whenever the user is typing something on the search input. Therefore, we need to hoist this state, or to access the state, product state. Let's add to the composable header section product state, and we will do product state is searching. Next, we have to assign the query from the same state, product state and search query, or I think, search query. Now for the search label, make sure to import it from core UI. On search, we will trigger the event on query change under product event. Therefore, we're going to hoist this to the header section on query change. Now, whenever the user is going to click on the search button or the magnify icon, we need to navigate to the product search result screen and to pass the search query. Therefore, we're going to do nav controller, navigate to product search result screen. We're going to pass here the key of this particular parameter, which is search query, and you have to assign the value product state and search query. And before navigate, we're going to trigger the event on set current destination product search result screen. On clear query, we're going to trigger the event from the product event clear search. On suggested product click, we're going to navigate to another screen, which is the product detail screen. For the parameter ID key, and it should be the product ID that we have from the product ID under unsuggested product click parameter. On before navigate, and we have to trigger the event on set current destination as usual. Okay, let's get rid of focus manager. Why I do this? Because I prefer to do everything within the layout, or if even possible, within the main activity. Focus manager. Now let's assign the close button content description for testing purposes, as well as the others. And finally, we have to provide the suggested products from the state products, suggested products. We are not doing any efforts here, we're just filling the blanks. It's a little bit deceiving, this particular parameter name. If you want, you can rename it to toolbar, because the toolbar is going to handle two states, the login button as well as the user button if the user is authenticated. But anyway, let's use here the toolbar that we have implemented, and let's see what are the parameters that we have to provide here. We have a list of parameters, but it's doable. Let's hoist the auth state. Let's do, for example, is dark theme. Let's hoist it as well. Toolbar state with the same manner. Let's hoist it. The same goes for on toolbar event. Going to do the same thing for login state as well as the login form event, register state, and register form event. Whenever the user click on logout, we're going to trigger the event on logout. And you have to make sure that we have an authenticated user. On toolbar event, on logout from toolbar event, we have to provide here the user ID. On logged out, first of all, we're going to set the authenticated user to null by triggering the event from the auth event set authenticated user. And we have to show the snack bar message. All right, let's add here another event for auth event. All right, so it bothers me actually, those falsy errors. So I'm going to provide the other parameters in order to get rid of this. we need to provide on login, on menu, item click, on wishlist click, on dark theme switched. Under on logout, let's provide the other callback functions. On error. Error is gone. All right, because it's a little bit annoying. Now let's show the snack bar message, triggering the events from main activity events on set snack bar data. Make sure to do the snack bar data from core UI, not material tree. For the data, is very simple. I'm just going to show this particular icon, SVG icon. And for the severity in this case, I would like to add here success. Basically, when the user has successfully logged out from the application, we're going to show a success snack bar message. Now we have to show the snack bar by calling snack bar controller and show snack bar. Therefore, I'm going to add here the snack bar controller at the header section. So we do have the snack bar controller. Now we have to show the message. We need to pass here the snack bar host state as well as the message that we want to show. And for the message, we have already defined the message under the strings core UI text logged out. Let's hoist the context as well. Let's come back to this snack bar, and this parameter, it should be optional action label. With the same manner, on error, set the snack bar data. This is the icon, this is the severity, and we have to show the snack bar. Basically, an error occurred while logging out. On login, basically the user has just logged in. What we have to do here, first of all, it's a good practice to initialize all the fields under the login form. Basically, we're going to set the alert text to empty string, and it should be invisible. Under one particular scenario, if you have provided the wrong credentials and you suddenly remembered the correct password, you need to hide the alert message. That's why we're going to call the event or trigger the event from login form event, set alert, and we have to initialize the message to empty string and the visibility of the alert message to false. And next we have to close the modal. Next we have to show the snack bar message to the user, welcome username, the same thing that we have done under Vue3 application. Now for the on menu click, we would like to refresh the data once the user clicking on this menu button. Therefore, we're going to trigger the event from auth events on refresh user data. We have to provide the first parameter, which is on refresh failed. We need to show a snack bar message to the user, telling the user, hey, we have an error loading or refreshing the data. Now for on wishlist click, first of all, we need to check if the authenticated user is null. We need to navigate to the screen, unauthorized screen. Otherwise, we're going to navigate to the wishlist manager screen. On dark theme switch, what we have to do here, we have to trigger the event from main activity events on set dark theme. And that's all we have for our header. We don't need actually the preview. Let's use the header under layout, header section. I have just realized one thing important that perhaps we have forgot. Under the toolbar, which is very dangerous to add optional parameters. If you do remember here under toolbar, we need to provide the one-time event. It's login success event. Therefore, we have to hoist this particular one. Let's add it here at the top of our header section. Let's make it mandatory. Let's assign it here under toolbar. If we don't do that, nothing's going to work as far as the one-time event goes. So let's come back to the layout, login success events. We're going to hoist this as well. Let's do, for example, 50% of the screen height. For the dark theme from main activity state is dark theme. I'm going to hoist auth state as well as auth events. Let's create here the snack bar host under layout, auth state and the event. Now for the product state, we need to inject here the product view model by calling product view model by health view model of type product view model. By doing this, your composable layout is no longer testable. But for us, we don't want to test or to preview the layout composable. I'm going to access the product state, collect as state. Let's create the snack bar host state. For the product state, equal product state. On product event will be product view model on event. And let's hoist the main event as well as the toolbar state and the toolbar event. The same for login state and the register state and its related events. Next, we need to assign the nav controller. Let's create here the nav controller. Remember nav controller. And we have to access the snack bar controller. Let's hoist this snack bar controller and assign snack bar controller. Let's create here the focus manager, local focus manager, and current. This is optional. You can hoist everything to the main activity, but I just want to lift some heavy lifting from layout to the main activity. And the context. We can access the context here and assign the context. That's all we have for the header section. Now for the main part of our application. It consists of navigation. To organize a little bit our workflow, I'm going to create here under the Pocket Goods package, another package. I'm going to call it routes. I'm going to define here the routes for our application. First things first, I'm going to create a composable. Basically, it's a wrapper composable around the nav host. Let's add here the nav host composable, and let's provide the needed arguments. Let's make it reusable by hoisting the modifier. Let's hoist the nav controller, and let's hoist again the start destination. I'm going to customize here the enter transition. Basically, this is the animation for the navigation, and exit transition. For the enter transition, I'm going to do slide in horizontally. For the exit transition, slide out horizontally. For the pop enter transition, we'll do slide in, basically from the left, and pop exit transition to the right. And I would like to hoist the builder. And for the builder, it will be the builder. I think that we're going to stop here. For the next video, we're going to continue implementing this particular section. I hope you have learned something new. See you in the next one, and happy coding.